Good Saturday morning, everyone, and welcome to, I believe, the second to the last uh, installment of The Key to Solomon's Key. Is this the lost symbol of Masonry, or Secrets of Magic and Masonry? We finally gotten to the section where we're segueing into the Lesser Key of Solomon and the discussion of solomonic magic and spirit evocation. Uh, so I'm going to read right up to the section that is just the excerpts from the classical texts. And then probably starting on Monday, I'll start something else if I think you if I thought that you would be interested in continuing these morning readings. Uh, they certainly are helpful to me. I've got a couple ideas of what I'd like to do next, and whatever I decide, I'll probably announce tomorrow. But today, we are on that part of actually, the first part of section 2, the Magic of Solomon. Elements of Spirit Evocation. The epigram is: Magic is as mysterious as mathematics, as empirical as poetry, as uncertain as golf, and as dependent on the personal equation as love. Aleister Crowley. This section is comprised of excerpts from the Goetia, the Lesser Key of Solomon, including the list of 72 traditional spirits, their attributes and abilities, together with their magical seals. I realize that for many this material will seem a bit incongruous to that of the first section of this little book, and I expect that there will be those who might not see any connection whatsoever. If that's the case, I have at least partially failed in my attempt to awaken the archetypal Solomon within the reader's psyche. I hope this little introduction will serve as a proper segue. For scholarly or practical purposes, the material that follows is not meant to serve as a replacement for the full unabridged text. Nor by its inclusion am I suggesting that anyone who reads this little book should immediately begin the practice of summoning spirits. I am, however, hoping that once you're acquainted with the methods by which the ancient magicians used the instruments of legend, myth, and imagination to gain mastery over his or her world, you might realize how you might use the same tools to transform areas of your life and circumstances. But before plunging directly into the excerpts from this remarkable work, I encourage you to review Chapter 11, where I outlined the basic character and operating procedures of this kind of sorcery. Also, I'm sure many readers will have questions concerning Solomonic magic in general and Goetia in particular. So, in an attempt to preemptively address some of these issues, I will, by the magic of imagination, split myself in two, half the hypothetical and ruthless inquisitive owner of this book, the other half the kindly old author and magician. Question number 1. Do you actually expect me to believe this kind of magic works? No. I don't expect anyone to believe anything. Magic is a psychological art form, not a belief system. Unless, of course, you consider the concept of cause and effect to be a belief system. I am expecting, however, that you will withhold absolute judgment about the efficacy of such exercises until such time you actually perform a Goetic evocation for yourself. I have on numerous occasions over the last 30 years evoked a number of spirits of the Goetia utilizing the basic formula outlined in the Lesser Key of Solomon. I have also taught others to do the same. If success is measured by whether or not the stated purpose of the exercise was regularly achieved, then my personal experience and report from others with whom I've had personal contact lead me to affirm categorically that this kind of magic does indeed work. Question 2. Are the spirits real or imaginary? I can only offer my personal opinion based upon conclusions I've drawn from the result of my own experiences with this kind of exercise. There are very many knowledgeable individuals who disagree with my assumptions. Some think I've taken the magic out of magic by overanalyzing the process and making things too psychological. Others think my views of the art aren't agnostic enough, that my views are naive and overly mystical and romantic. I offer no rebuttal to either of these charges than to say spirits are as real as the powers they personify. To quote my literary alter ego, Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford, the spirits are both real and imaginary. But most of us do not realize how real our imagination is. For example, I don't believe in the existence of an objective, tangible entity who lives at the North Pole and flies around the world on Christmas Eve delivering gifts to everyone. But I know for a fact that there is a real and magical spirit of mad generosity personified merrily in the minds of billions of people as Santa Claus. In fact, each year during the months when this spirit is at its zenith of power to possess people, this subjective, intangible spirit is in a very real way responsible for the manifestation of an unimaginable number of material objects and immeasurable wealth and happiness. But beware. The same letters that spell Santa also spell Satan. This spirit also has a dark and evil side. When not properly understood, evoked, and controlled, he can be a cynical and destructive demon who in his icy season routinely brings gifts of family strife, suffocating debt, regret, depression, and suicide. There are those who agree with the great 20th century magician Aleister Crowley, who wrote in as an introduction to Goetia, "The spirits of Goetia are portions of the human brain." While I'm not sure I altogether agree, Mr. Crowley certainly provides us food for thought. How often have we heard that humans actually use only a tiny percentage of our brain? Who knows what godlike powers we could exercise if we use more of our brains? Imagine that we could divide that unused part of our brain into 72 sections, the 72 spirits of the Goetia. Each section a living representation of a specific and unique psychic or intellectual power we are presently not using, the attributes and powers of this spirit. We assign each of those sections a mythological name, like Furfur or Orobas, and a symbol, the seal of the spirit, that we can gaze upon during altered states of consciousness induced by the rituals and preparation, the incense, the babbling strings of incomprehensible words, etc., whereby we isolate, activate, and employ that portion of the brain. Instead of thinking of spirits as portions of the physical brain tissue, however, it might be more accurate and just as practical to view them as portions of the subconscious mind. As the pioneers of quantum physics are suggesting and demonstrating, the influence of the mind transcends the tiny confines of the human cranium and operate on multiple dimensions, unencumbered by limits of time and space. Tinkering with the subconscious mind is, in a very real way, tinkering with the cosmos. And since prehistoric times, the people who have tinkered with their subconscious minds the most have been magicians. Question 3. The text says that many of the spirits have very odd and archaic powers that I have absolutely no interest in. If the spirits are merely portions of my brain or mind, why on earth would I have a section dedicated to fetching horses or attaining prelacies or lighting seeming candles upon the graves of the dead? It'll become immediately obvious to the reader that the text is written in an odd, archaic style. There's a simple reason for this. It's an odd and archaic document. As I mentioned in Chapter 11, the original manuscripts date from 1697 and represent updated versions of far older material. Even though the world has changed a lot since then, our daily lives are in essence remarkably similar to our ancestors. We may not have the need of horses or church honors or the power to illuminate graves, but we still need a car, a career advancement, and some of us occasionally need the wit and eloquence to write and deliver a eulogy. Selecting the proper spirit to perform the specific task you need is a vital component of the magical operation. Some are very obvious, as in the case of number 10, Buer, who is said to healeth all distempers. Others are not so obvious and take a little thought and imagination. Being able to recognize your particular problem, metaphorically expressed as the power to understand birds or causing trees to bend at your will, is the first step to impressing your subconscious mind with the essence of the issue you need resolved. A bird needn't be a crow or a canary. It could be a chattering gossip or a biology test. and the power to bend a tree may suggest the ability to overcome stiff resistance to your ideas or proposals. Question 4. In the first section of this book, you spent a lot of time demonstrating that the Old Testament patriarchs, David, Solomon, and others, were not historical characters. Yet, in the Lesser Key of Solomon, it is filled with references to these characters. Are you asking us to again believe in these fables? Yes and no. Of course, these Bible characters and stories are myths and fables. But myths and fables form and profoundly affect the deepest strata of the human psyche. Most of us are happy to suspend our disbelief for a few hours within the darkened confines of a movie theater. A powerful tool that most of us use, that same imaginative ability is the cornerstone of magic. A powerful tool that most of us use only for sex, entertainment, and diversion. If used with skill and understanding, however, it's the perfect tool to help us break out of our present narrow stream of consciousness. Recall from chapter 11 that I ask you to view these operations not as a magical ceremony, but as a psychological exercise, a psychodrama, whereby we call forth and isolate previously uncontrolled potentialities within ourselves and redirect their heretofore chaotic energies. The medieval magician didn't think in psychological terms at all. He or she believed quite passionately in the Old Testament God under a host of names, and the supernatural power of the biblical patriarchs David and Solomon. In a way, this gave the ancient practitioner a decided advantage over the modern practitioner, who must either A, like a true method actor or a participant in a role-playing game, find a way to temporarily step out of the rational flow of consciousness into the classic magical world with its existing rules and characters. Or B, somehow create a comparable magical world with a mythological hierarchy that personifies his or her understanding and beliefs. Both categories can be equally effective. I personally know several Solomonic magicians, including the great modern master of Goetic evocation, Poke Runyon, who wholeheartedly embraced the art form of the classic Goetic workings. They operate by the book, and as much as possible, as humanly possible, conform with every instruction found in the text. They wear the proper attire, construct and use the proper magical tools and equipment, observe the proper hours, memorize all the conjurations and constraints, everything. It offends their sense of art, and after all, magic is an art, if the instructions in the classical text are violated. It bolsters their magical confidence to know in their hearts they are doing things just like the ancient practitioners. Doing this is their yoga, the zen of their art. Personally, I fall more easily into category B. My sense of art is not at all offended by amending or discarding portions of the classic text. While I take pains to conform to the basic formula and follow the order of ceremony of the classic system, I've customized everything else to harmonize with my own spiritual worldview. With a little thought, anyone else can do the same. Finally, and this is the last question we'll take for today, under what circumstances is it appropriate to evoke a spirit? Ultimately, only the individual magician can determine when it is or is not appropriate to use solomonic magic to evoke a spirit. However, my experience of what has and has not worked for me in the past leads me to make the following observations. You must first have a problem, a real problem. But before enlisting the aid of the Spirit to resolve the problem, you must have done everything in your power to take care of the matter by regular means on the physical plane. That's magic too. If your neighbor's thoughtless midnight tuba playing is ruining your sleep, your health, and your ability to stay awake at night, if you've asked him to stop, if you've called the police and they didn't help, if you've tried to enlist the help of other neighbors, if you've marched next door and punched the inconsiderate idiot in his tuba-tooting lip, if you've tried everything else on earth, then maybe it is time to at least consider a magical remedy. However, if you haven't exhausted all other measures, it would be cowardly and unwise to magically tinker with your precious subconscious mind just to force some poor spirit to do your dirty work. Secondly, the problem you wish to resolve must be a personal matter. You can't do magic for someone else. When you formally evoke a spirit, you are evoking an adventure. Adventures are not always pleasant, and sometimes are dangerous, even deadly. At the conclusion of the adventure, however, if you survive, you'll emerge from the experience a better, wiser, braver, cooler person. No one else can take your adventure for you. And you cannot take the adventure for someone else. Therefore, your reasons for evoking a spirit must be entirely personal. You wouldn't expect to reap the benefits of a psychotherapy session by sending someone else to replace you on the analyst's couch. Thirdly, you must feel totally justified in doing what you are about to do. You must have a deep and emotional involvement in the matter you wish resolved. If you aren't convinced of your motive, if you aren't reaching to the very bottom of the visceral hell of your frustration, your anger, then you're not touching the level of consciousness where these beasties exist. Furthermore, once you've evoked it into the triangle, you must be able to consider the spirit, the personification of your problem. For in essence, that is what it is. You have every reason to be mad at it. The spirit is your problem. It's always been your problem. For the first time in your life, you've isolated it and can now focus the full force of your righteous anger and indignation not at your spouse, not at your boss, not at your kids or your dog or the government, but at the real source of your problem. It has to listen to you, so you better know what you want to tell it. It's either going to shape up and do what you command, or you're going to annihilate it. My last little word of advice is, don't make deals with the spirit. In a very real way, you've been unconsciously making deals with the spirit your whole life. That's why you have your problem. The whole ceremony is your formal way of branding your subconscious mind with the idea that you're through making deals with this tangled piece of ignorance, flawed perception, fear, vice, or addiction. Take your pick. They're all demons. Do you see the plot of this psychodrama? Do you see the method to the madness? Once you've voluntarily reprogrammed your subconscious mind with the traumatic little experience like this, you become, in essence, a different person. Different things start happening to you when you become a different person. If all goes well, one of those things will be the solution to your problem. And that's where we'll end today. We'll pick it up with question 6 tomorrow and finish off this book. I hope you're enjoying yourself. Have a great weekend, everyone. Continue to be cautious, but also have fun. Continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. Happy Saturday, everyone.